Day 2 of the 2025 NFL Draft is in the books. So in today's video, we are going to be talking about the best and worst picks of the 2025 second round NFL Draft. I said that horribly. Let's hop into it. So we're going to be doing this video beginning with the good picks and then ending it off with the bad picks. I have 5 for each category, so let's hop through all of these. We're going to begin, like I said, with the positives, and my first team that I want to give a massive shout out to is the Dallas Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys got a lot of criticism for the Tyler Booker pick. Also, I'm not yelling into my mic like you usually do. It's late at night. I don't want to wake my neighbors up. Hopefully you understand. But in general, the Cowboys did get a lot of criticism for the Tyler Booker pick. I didn't hate the pick. I also didn't love the pick. You guys can see my reaction on my channel where you can see my live reaction to the pick. And it was a little critical, but after I kind of slept on it, I definitely gave it a bit more thought. But I thought in day 2, man, the Dallas Cowboys kind of cooked. As you can see, in round 2, they took Donovan Ezraku, and then in round 3, taking Siobhan Revell. In my personal opinion, I think that both those guys easily could have ended up being first round picks. Now they ended up not going there. Donovan Ezraku probably just because he's a bit more of a scheme dependent pass rusher who has limited run defending upside. And then for Siobhan Revell, it's just more because of the ACL injury. But regardless of that, you got a premier pass rusher in round 2 and a ball hawking, vast as hell, athletic freak, long rangy corner that could probably end up being your Trevon Diggs long-term replacements. So in my opinion, in the first 3 rounds, the Dallas Cowboys have 3 bona fide starters, and I do understand that potentially a receiver or running back is a huge need for them, but they have a lot of 5th round and 6th round picks. I'm sure they can probably trade up in round 4 to take a Dylan Sampson who's still available, or I think Alec Ayomaner is also available. So they have some options to move up to get one of those guys. But I think they just killed the first 3 rounds. They did not overthink it. They just took the best player available in somewhat positions of need. And I think they knocked every single one of the picks outside of the park. So I'm a big fan of what they've done. 3 picks in, 3 W's in my opinion. Next is the Arizona Cardinals. I kind of had a feeling the Cardinals were going to cook in this draft. I don't know why. They just always felt like whenever I was doing mock drafts with them, I was always just finding great players. And they kind of cooked so far in this year's draft. As you can see, round 1, of course, Walter Nolan, but more specifically, round 2, getting Will Johnson at pick 47, and then Jordan Burch in pick 78. Let's get this out of the way. The Will Johnson injury has to be severe, because if it's not severe, he's not going round 2. If he is fully healthy, this is probably a top 15, maybe even a top 10 pick. So I'm assuming that this injury is a legitimate issue and that there needs to be some serious concern about it. With all that said, if they, for whatever reason, are able to get a somewhat healthy Will Johnson for his entire career, you're possibly getting a true lockdown cornerback 1. And that's kind of what this Cardinals team needed. Hell, we had so many mock drafts of Will Johnson going at 16. For them to pass on him at 16, take an awesome player in Walter Nolan, then still end up taking him in rounds 2, I think is a home run hit. And then Jordan Burch is an awesome piece that has some versatility. And even though I feel like the defensive line for Arizona already has some really good pieces, you add even more to it. You also have a 4th and a 5th round pick where you can maybe add a receiver or, I don't know, a speedster in the running room. But man, this team, I'll be honest with you, if Kyler Murray plays good next year, the Arizona Cardinals might end up in a position where they're looking at a playoff spot. Not predicting it, just saying it could happen. Next up is going to be the Carolina Panthers, a team where there were some question marks on the Ted McMillan in round 1. Maybe they should have went with a Walker or with the Micah Williams. They went on the receiver, but I kind of think they cooked in the 2nd and 3rd round. As you can see, obviously Ted McMillan in round 1, but then Nick Scorton in round 2. I had a late first, early 2nd round grade on him, and then Princely Uman Mielen, I had a day 2 grade on him, and I think he is an awesome player. For this team, this was a defense last year that was horrendous, and a lot of the issues they had was off the edge, just not being able to put pressure on quarterbacks. Princely is a bona fide pass rush guru. Now, he leaves a little bit to be desired in other categories, but he can get to the quarterback. He's got a variety of moves that you just don't see from a typical 3rd rounder. So the fact that he got there is pretty awesome for the Carolina Panthers. And then for Nick Scorton, he's got good size, good length, high upside player that, man, just watch the Purdue tape. The dude is fantastic. He has a lot of things into his repertoire. I also think he's a good run defender as well. So, and I think in 3 picks, kind of like Dallas, I think you had 3 home runs and 3 players that I could imagine being long-term parts of this team for the future. You have your potential wide receiver 1 in Ted, maybe a go-to pass rusher in Princely, and then a 3-down guy in Nick Scorton. I don't think you get much better than that. So I don't think Carolina is quite of the same area as like a Arizona, where I think Carolina can go to the playoffs next year. But I mean, if they continue knocking this draft out of the park, they very well could end up being a team that wins more games than maybe we expect. So keep an eye out for them. The next team that I thought had a really good draft was the New England Patriots. As you can see, Will Campbell in round 1, then Travion Henderson, one of my top running backs in this year's class, Kyle Williams, a top 10 receiver in my opinion, and then arguably the most shocking pick of the draft, Jared Wilson, falling to late 3rd round to the New England Patriots. let me get this out of the way. In round 1, you fixed a major issue in the tackle room. In rounds 2, you added a dynamic weapon in your running back core that's going to get 15 to 20 carries a game and be a big part of Drake May and that receiving core. Kyle Williams is a speedster that can create so much separation with his athleticism and route running ability. Pair that with Stephon Diggs and Jacoby Myers. Kendrick Bourne. And then, of course, Jared Wilson probably going to play center for this team, be your replacement for what you lose in Andrews. And I kind of think that you have 4, maybe not starters with Travion Henderson, at least immediately, but 4 future long-term answers in several positions of need. You shored up your offensive line with 2 home run hits, in my opinion. Campbell's going to work out, whether it's tackle or guard. And I think Wilson will be an awesome center for this team. He might need a little bit of some development and some time, but have some patience. He has the entire tool set available for him. And then Travion Henderson, if he stays healthy, has a bright future at running back for this team. And I love Kyle Williams, and I think his skill set will fit nicely with what this team needs. So, in general, man, I got to give a lot of credit to this Patriots team. I was very skeptical about what they did in free agency, but now everything's kind of coming together, and it's looking like this Patriots team could be pretty competitive next year. And then the last team I'll talk about, now granted, there are a lot of teams that I could have thrown in this video, so you let me know in the comment section below on a team that I don't mention in the video, and I'll let you know what I thought about them. But shout out to the New York Jets, man. Armand Membu round 1, and then rounds 2 and 3, I thought they got some really good value in both those picks. As you can see, they took Mason Taylor in round 2 to be their long-term answer at tight end. A much-needed upgrade there because you lose Conklin, they didn't really have anybody that you felt confident in. And then Azariah Thomas can play opposite of Sauce Gardner. Maybe he doesn't have to start immediately, but maybe he does. And I just think it's great value at pick 73. There was legitimate hype that Mason Taylor was a potential early to late first round pick, and he falls into your laps at pick 42. You take him. That's a serious upgrade in the tight end room. And Azariah Thomas is one of my favorite corners in this draft. A long, lengthy, rangy press corner that maybe doesn't have the greatest speed, but you pair him opposite of a Sauce Gardner. I just think he's a good player that, giving him some time to develop behind what you already have in that secondary, I think it's a good fit. And I think in general, kind of like what I've talked about with a lot of these teams, I think you have 3 future starters. Armand Membu probably steps in immediately at right tackle. Mason Taylor steps in immediately at tight end. And then Azariah Thomas may not start immediately, but very well will end up probably being a starting corner for this team at some point. So I like what they've done. I think the Jets have done a really good job at using their assets properly, not overspending and not overthinking things either. All right, but now we get to the portion where I got to be a bit more negative, and we're actually going to begin with the Cleveland Browns. Now, I think there's a lot of nuance to what the Browns have done so far. I just haven't necessarily loved it. So, of course, as we all know, they did the big trade with the Jacksonville Jaguars in round 1 to not take Travis Hunter, but end up taking Mason Graham with pick 5. Then they took Carson Schlesinger with the first pick in the second round. I thought that was a bit of a reach. Love the Quinshawn pick. I think he's one of the best running backs in this class. No complaints here with that one. But then Harold Fannin, I'm sorry, I'm just not high on him. I don't see the blocking upside. I think receiving-wise, it just doesn't make a lot of sense because you already have David Njoku, who's one of the best tight ends in the league. And then Dylan Gabriel, listen, Shedeur Sanders is there. And I understand that maybe Shedeur gets a lot of hate and criticism for his interviews. But I think at some point, you got to put all that aside and just say, look, Shedeur's the better quarterback than Dylan Gabriel. And maybe this is not a long-term investment for them. Maybe they're saying we're going all in 2026 to get a franchise quarterback, and Dylan Gabriel is just going to be a one-year starter and eventually going to be our backup quarterback. I can understand that. But if you want to be a competitive team immediately, man, I feel like you got to pass on Dylan Gabriel for Shedeur Sanders. But it's just in general, I felt like, okay, in rounds 1, I probably would have preferred Travis Hunter over Mason Graham. I do understand, though, you're going all in on a quarterback in 2026, so having multiple assets does make a lot of sense. But still, Travis Hunter is a great player that fixes a lot of their issues. They go with Mason Graham. Carson Schlesinger, I just don't love the value. Pick 33 is way too high for me. He's on the ground constantly. Tackling machine, though, but I just think, man, they didn't really desperately need a linebacker. I feel like they had other massive positions of need, like, I don't know, wide receiver or tackle, maybe even a corner, and they didn't really address any of those with any of their second-round picks. I mean, Quinshaw did address a massive need, though, so give him that. Then Harold Fannin, that one's confusing to me because David Njoku is just an awesome player, and Harold Fannin's just, I mean, yes, you can run some 12 personnel, but, man, you could have taken a tight end in round 4 like Gunnar Helm and been pretty fine. And then the Dylan Gabriel pick, man, you could have taken him at round 4. So much value still on the board there, and you end up taking a quarterback that is probably going to be nothing more than a backup. No disrespect, but yeah, I'm not a big fan of what they've done so far. Next is going to be the Green Bay Packers. Now, I liked their first round pick with Matthew Golden. It's just that, man, the second round pick doesn't make a lot of sense at all. Because again, I like the Matthew Golden pick, but Anthony Belton in round 2, no disrespect, I think Anthony Belton could be worthwhile of a pick here. But where is he going to play? I'm looking at this offensive line here for Green Bay. Rasheed Walker, who's been a solid left tackle for this team. You just brought in Aaron Banks. I don't think you're putting Belton at center. I don't think you're putting him at right guard either. And then Zach Tom at right tackle. Like, I felt like this offensive line was already pretty set. Not to mention, there's also Jordan Morgan, your first round pick from last year. So this was already a pretty young offensive line with Walker and Tom both being young. Sure, maybe you can move Belton inside, but man, it just felt super rich to take that in rounds 2. And then to pair that with Savion Williams, somebody who, in my opinion, is not a top 20 receiver in this year's draft class and basically an entire weapon for an offense. Again, I think there's some ways you can deploy him, but I view him as being like Timu Debo Samuel. And to that be your round 3 pick when there's some really good edge rushers still on the board, some really good corners, some safeties, like there's a lot of really good talent on the board here, and you pass on him for, I'm assuming, a swing tackle, and maybe best case scenario, a backup or a starting guard. We'll see. And then Savion Williams, somebody who I just don't feel very confident has the nuance to his game to ever really be a serious starter in your receiving core. Now, granted, I love the Matthew Golden pick, and I like the fact they're a bit more aggressive in fixing up the receiving core, but just feels like, man, you're throwing bodies into a room that doesn't really need bodies, it needs game changers, and you did that with Matthew Golden, but now you're just throwing another guy in there. And then Anthony Belton, just, I don't understand it. Like, edge rusher is a huge need for this team. They could use a younger defensive tackle, and they pass on both of them. So, yeah, I'm not a huge fan of what they've done so far, besides, of course, Matthew Golden. Then we get to one of the more fun conversations of the day, the New Orleans Saints taking Tyler Shock over a lot of good quarterbacks. Let me get this out of the way. Did not think Tyler Shock was worthy of a day 2 pick. I thought he was more of a day 3 guy, but let's look at what they also did outside of that one. Of course, round 1, taking Kelvin Banks. I'm a big fan of that one. Tyler Shock, round 2. Vernon Broughton, to pair up the Texas boys. Round 3 is a little rich for me on Broughton. I maybe would have preferred it if it was like here, but if the value was there, I guess you just take it. And then Jonas Sanker, I actually like the pick, even though I feel like the safety room was already pretty set. They kind of need corner more so, but it's okay. The value was fine. But Tyler Shock at pick 40 with Shador Sanders, Jalen Milroe on the board, I don't know, man. I just do not feel that one. Let me get this out the way. Tyler Shock has some really good qualities to him. I think he's one of the better throwers of the football. Yes, he's a wild man. He's got some crazy plays on tape. But I can't take a 25-year-old quarterback with 3 season-ending, I think, surgeries at pick 40. Like, his dude was, like, for reference, this guy was playing with Juwan Johnson at Oregon. Juwan Johnson's been in the league for, feels like 7+ years at this point. Like legitimately, they were playing in college together. He was in the same class, or I think he was in the same class as Trevor Lawrence. And he's just now becoming a rookie. Now, don't get me wrong. This is a Saints team that is in the mood to win now, so maybe it's okay that they're going to get a finished product, but I just look at it and I say, hey, this dude is a finished product right now. Like, there's not a lot of development he's really going to go through, at least physically speaking, and I just have serious concerns about how he's going to handle hits at the NFL level, and like one more injury to this guy, and I think it could be career-ending because of how many just major injuries he's had. And again, Shador Sanders is on the board, and I understand that there's a lot of criticism of Shador. He's a dang good quarterback, fundamentally sound, could be a culture change for this team in either a good way or a bad way, depending on how you look at it. And I like Tyler Shock as a person. I'm happy for the dude. He's going to get a great opportunity to succeed here, and it's just rich for me, man. I would not have taken Tyler Shock round 2. I would have really struggled to take him round 3, and especially at pick 40. With all the issues this Saints team has, I don't like the pick. I would have passed on a quarterback. Frankly, if you weren't going to draft Shador, I would not have taken a quarterback at all. I would have punted till 2026, took a really good talent, continued to get younger, and then went all in on a quarterback next year. But they didn't do so. They took Tyler Shock, and I don't like it. I don't like it one bit. All right, the next one is a nitpicky one. Frankly, I actually liked a lot of the picks that happened in this draft, so I'm just going to be a little nitpicky here and pick on the Detroit Lions, who, frankly, I don't think they've had the greatest draft by any means. Round 1, taking Tyleik Williams. I thought that was a little rich for my liking. I viewed him more as like a day 2 option, but they took him round 1, so I didn't hate it. And then they took Tate Ratledge. Sorry, there's an ad right here, but they took Tate Ratledge, and I actually liked that pick quite a bit. He kind of fits what the identity is of Georgia. Athletic guard, can play center, probably more guard. Dealt with some injuries last year, so I like this one. Isaac Tesla at pick 70, though, is a little questionable. Again, I'm nitpicky here. Again, I liked a lot of the picks, so this is like the one that kind of stood out to me as like I don't know if I like that one. A lot of good players on the board. And taking a receiver, especially this late in the 3rd round, didn't really feel like it's going to be that big of a game changer. Again, I do trust the Lions, though. Like, regardless of what I think about their draft class, they have shown the ability to draft at a high level. So even if I'm not the biggest fan, I have to at least admit that the Lions do a pretty good job at drafting. But just in general, I would have preferred them to take somebody else, maybe another receiver I would have liked a bit more. And I don't know, in general, their draft class hasn't been my favorite. I do like the Tate Ratledge pick quite a bit though. And then the last one is going to be the Denver Broncos. And that kind of sucks as I really, really liked their first round pick. And I don't hate their picks. It's just I don't love the value of their picks. Kind of something that I find very important about the draft, finding good value picks, like the Cowboys getting some really good values. I didn't feel like the Broncos did a very good job of that. Jahdae Barron, love this pick. One of my favorite picks of the draft, quite frankly. But then RJ Harvey, round 2. I don't know, dude. Caleb Johnson, I think, was still on the board. Damian Martinez, Dylan Sampson, some really good running back prospects. And I like Harvey. I have no major issue with it. It's just, man, if you would have took RJ Harvey like here, cool. But at 60, it just felt a little rich. Pat Bryant, not in my top 10 receivers, probably would be at like a top 16, 17 receiver. So I don't hate the pick. But at pick 74, a lot of other really good receivers on the board here. I just don't feel like he's that much of a difference maker for this team. And then Savion Jones, listen, I might get some criticism for this. Braden Swinson is a awesome player. Way better than Savion Jones. And if you're looking for an LSU defensive lineman that you should have taken at pick 101, that in my opinion was worthy of a second round pick, it's Braden Swinson. Braden Swinson is one of my highest graded players in this draft class. He's an elite pass rusher. He's good against the run. Just has all those tools in the toolbox, good size, good frame, everything to be a great player in the NFL. But you pass on him for Savion Jones, a guy that I frankly didn't see being a day 2 guy. I saw maybe day 3 at some point, but again, it's just value. I don't necessarily hate everything they took. It's just, man, RJ Harvey, probably would have preferred him in round 3. Pat Bryant, probably would have preferred in round 4. Savion Jones would have preferred in round 4. I would have preferred them to have went with something along the lines of Jahdae Barron round 1. I don't know, Damian Martinez round 2, or Caleb Johnson, maybe like a Alec Aomaner in round 3, and then in Braden Swinson with your last round 3 pick. Just in general, didn't love the value. It's not like they're having a bad draft per se. It's just the value of certain picks doesn't really mesh with my personal liking. But if you guys did enjoy the video, hit the like and subscribe button. Day 3 is tomorrow. We'll have full report cards for every single team tomorrow. So stay tuned. Love you guys. Peace.